I'll go ahead and share my slide.
Good afternoon, class.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I can't see your name. I'm trying to pull up my slide. Can anyone see my slide now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
we can see them.
All right.
Yeah, we can see it, sir.
All right. Thank you. I welcome everyone today for the third session of the Surviving the Storm of Academic and Research Writing workshop with me. And this is the third week, and I believe we've made a lot of progress from the first time we started looking at the overview of academic writing or research writing, starting with the introductory paragraph, topic sentence, presenting your thesis. Then to the second week when we talked about how to make arguments and make defensible arguments in your research. So today we'll be looking at citation, an interesting part of research. And why it is interesting is because it is not something you learn at once. It is progressive. It's a progressive learning. Why I say this is because the style manuals that we use in research, depending on your discipline, depending on your field, whether it is APA, MLA, Turabian, Chicago, they evolve, they progress, they go from one edition to the other. I know that almost everyone here uses one citation manual or the other, depending on your field. Some of us use MLA, some of us use Chicago, some of us use APA, some of us use Turabian, and there are other style manual, but these are the four popular ones. And you can, attest to the fact that you've had different edition. For example, those who are using MLA, if you are still using the 8th edition, that means you are not current. So because we are now using the MLA 9th edition, then Chicago just released the 18th edition. For those who are still using maybe an edition, a previous edition, maybe 17th or 16th edition of Chicago. Then the APA, it is the 7th edition. So because these things evolve, because these things progress, so citation or style manual is not something you learn at once. It's a progressive learning. But I'll just go ahead and talk about them, talk about the primary things you need to know about them. Then, but bearing in mind that whatever thing I teach in this workshop can change in the next minute, in the next week, in the next month, in the next year. Because, like I said ab initio, it's a progressive learning. And again, the reason why we have manuals are always things to go back to check on. Most of us, we buy product and it comes with manual. And for us to, maybe when we encounter any problem, maybe to set up the product or to set up the instrument or machine that we bought or the product we bought, we have to refer back to the manual. So it's a continuous thing. Even as a graduate student at the University of Tulsa, I always have my MLA book because I always go back to chapter 5 and 6. So if I want to cite, if I want to make sure that, okay, I actually got this citation. So it's a continuous thing. So just bear that in mind. Then, before we forge ahead. So first and foremost, your paper should be your original thoughts, your own words. For the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about how to make arguments, how to present your thesis, how to make claims. These claims are the claims they are personal to you. They are original. They are your original thoughts. They are your opinion. This is what you want to argue for or against in your paper. So it is something you are bringing in, something new you are bringing in, maybe an extension you are bringing into your paper. But then you go as far as, integrating other sources, what other authors or what other scholars have said for as an evidence to back up or defend your claim or hypothesis. So, but it doesn't, dispute the fact that the paper is your original work. The thought process is yours as a writer, as a researcher. So bearing that in mind, you will have to support much of that thinking with quotations, paraphrases, and summaries of other authors' thoughts. So you already have your own thought, you already have your claim, you have your hypothesis. This is your main idea. Why are you writing this essay? You are writing this essay to prove, or you are writing this essay to show that what Aba women did in 1929, there are still vestiges of it in the present society. This is what you want to prove. But then you will have to support that thinking. You have to support that hypothesis with quotations, paraphrases, and summaries. Where are these quotations coming from? These quotations are not coming from you, except if you are trying to quote yourself on a paper that you've written before. But most often, for the most part, these quotations are coming from other authors, coming from other scholars that have written an article or that have written a book or that have written something around that topic, around that research interest. So doing this, you are referencing and crediting those authors' work. So that is what you are doing. You are giving them credit. You are appreciating their intellectual sagacity. You're also trying to avoid plagiarism. You are trying to credit them, because as an author, you end up publishing a work. At the end of it all, if someone uses your thought or lifts, some words or some sentences from your paper and don't give you credit, you won't be happy, because you really put a lot of effort to develop that paper, to write that paper, to get published, and someone is using your thoughts without crediting you. So nobody anywhere will be happy for his intellectual sagacity or his intellectual effort to be taken for granted. So you try to reference them, you try to credit them or give them credit, and you always try to do this appropriately, because most times we try to give credit, but we don't do it, in the appropriate way, and you end up plagiarizing. Please mute yourself if you are joining us, except if you want to ask a question. Thank you. So taking other authors' thought without proper acknowledgement in your paper results in plagiarism, like I've mentioned before. So plagiarism is not acknowledging people properly, not just not acknowledging people. Sometimes we think we acknowledge people, but the fact you are not acknowledging them properly, you're also plagiarizing. If you published a paper and you are writing a new paper and you want to borrow thought from your own paper and you don't credit yourself, you don't, cite yourself properly, you're also plagiarizing yourself. So it's an offense too. And if there is any fine you should pay, if you look at the plagiarism code of conduct, if there is any punishment, any consequences, despite you plagiarize yourself, you still have to pay fine. So that's the way it works. So we don't only plagiarize others, we can also plagiarize ourselves if we are trying to reference works that we've done in the past. So acknowledging sources or scholars' thoughts in your paper is called in-text citation. So I'll still discuss this extensively, in the next or in the following slides. But just know, primarily that in-text citation happens in the body of your paper. So when I say in the body, it includes from introduction to the conclusion. So that's where in-text citation happens, because that's why we say in-text. So it's inside the text, inside your paper, in the argument you are making, in the paragraphs. So that's where you cite authors. So when you acknowledge authors' thoughts, in the paragraphs in your essay or in your article. That is in-text citation. But doing that at the end note of your paper is called references or works cited. Where I use references refer, pertains to a particular citation style, but another citation style, we call it works cited. We'll still come to that. But just bear in mind, or just have this, at the back of your mind, that end note citation happens at the end of your research. So it's always for the most part, it's always the last page of your research. But sometimes it cannot be the last page of your research, especially if you are conducting, or if you have conducted an empirical study where you developed questions that you develop questions for your human subject or human participant. Then at the end of your paper, after your reference page, or after the endnote citation, the next pages will now have appendixes of the questions you asked your participants while collecting your primary data. But if it's just an article that you didn't conduct an empirical study, or that means you didn't interview people, so works cited page will definitely be the last page in your essay, in your article, after the summary. So, but for the most part, it's always the last page, and we call it endnote. So when we refer to endnote citation, it is the one that don't happen inside your essay, the one that happened at the end of your essay. And in this citation, you're going to list all the sources that you have used. You are going to cite all the authors, not just authors, even online and online organizations that your website or magazines online that are not authored by a particular person. You still have to cite them. We'll still get to that. So let's talk about citation styles. Always, ask questions. If you feel free to, pop in and ask me questions, or ask me to repeat some certain things in case I am in case I'm outpacing. So there are many citation styles. I may have mentioned that initial, but the 4 common ones are, MLA, known as Modern Language Association. And I also mentioned that we are currently on the 9th edition. So this is the new MLA handbook. So MLA 9th edition. And I always advise you to get this if you are in the humanities, especially liberal arts. So I think at this point, you already know what your professor wants from you, or what your discipline accepts in terms of the citation manual your discipline use. Most of us in the liberal arts, we use MLA, or in the humanities, we also use MLA. On rare cases, maybe social science might use APA, but then APA refers to American Psychological Association. Sorry for the typo, not Psychology Association, Psychological, 7th edition. So we are currently on the 7th edition of APA, the American Psychological Association. This citation style, or this style manual, is always used by natural science and people in the social science too. Psychology department, engineering, medicine, health, they use APA, not MLA. But then your professor might want something different. A journal you are trying to submit to might want, a citation style that is not what you've known or what you've been doing. So the best thing is for you to use the citation style that a journal, if there is any journal that is calling for paper submission, try to, adhere to their instructions, including the style manual they want you to put the paper. So don't tell them no, that your paper is a natural science paper, and as such, you should use your APA. If the journal had asked for Chicago, or if the journal had asked for MLA, just try to follow what the journal has asked. But in your field, especially whatever your professor wants, then always go ahead with that. Then the Chicago Manual Style, we are on the 18th edition. They just released the 18th edition of Chicago Manual Style. But for the purpose, we also have Turabian. Turabian is sometimes called the Chicago Style. I've not used it before, and I don't have expertise on the Turabian. Even the Chicago is just, to an extent, because I work in a journal called James Joyce Journal, so they use the Chicago. So that is me getting in contact with Chicago and see the way it works. But all my life, it has just been MLA and APA. MLA because I'm in the liberal arts, APA because I have degree in education. So in education, we use APA, not MLA. Well, so when I was at Duke University, it was APA that I used for my master's thesis. But for this workshop, I will mostly be talking about MLA and APA. Yeah. Like I said, it's a progressive thing, but you can always go as, far as researching on Chicago or the Turabian, if that is what your profession use. But I think for the most part, almost everyone here, you're either using MLA, that is a Modern Language Association, or you're using APA, that's American Psychological Association. So is there any question at this point? Or someone should let me know if they are following.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
yes, we are with you.
Okay, thank you.
We are with you, sir.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump into the in-text citation, in the APA style of in-text citation. So anything as we forge ahead, it will always be a two-edged something, in the sense that we'll talk about APA and we'll talk about MLA. All right, AB Wonder, go ahead if you have a question.
All right, thank you, sir. Sir, please, why do we have different citation style? Why?
Okay,
Can't we just use one or the academia? Why do we just have different citation style?
That's an
We have
interesting
Chicago.
That's an interesting question, and I will want to answer it with this logic. The reason we have different citation style is also the reason we have different literary theories. So I believe you're a researcher or you're a graduate student and you've done research or you've written project. Most times your professor they will ask you, what theory are you going to employ to look at this particular field? Sometimes you say, oh, I'm going to use Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis. Another person will say, no, I will use structuralism. Another person will say, I will use post-colonialism. Another person will say, I will use... So the reason we have different theories, it's also the reason we have, different citation style, because these things are coming from scholars, especially school of thought. So most times we hear, Aristotle say this. We hear, Horace say this. We have Socrates say this, because these are, embodiment of knowledge, different scholars. And most times scholars will just want to do something differently and they will say this is the best style. I could remember when I was doing masters at UNN, there's this professor, if you are writing anything and you are not using formalism as a theory to approach your work or as an analytical lens to any article you are writing, he thinks you are not a researcher. And he so believe in it. It might sound weird, but sometimes they go as far as even having some academic fight and, saying that a particular theory is the best. Yeah, so I get your question. We should actually use one citation style so it will just be easy for everyone. But then, there are people coming from a particular field or particular profession, and they think this is the best way it works for them to cite authors, to present works. So there is no just any reason. It's just scholarship. It's just, having our own. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah. I know it can be crazy, but it's an interesting question too. Just like, why is everybody not speaking English? Why is everybody not speaking French? Why is everybody not speaking Igbo? Why is everybody not speaking Yoruba or Zulu language or Ashanti? So variety, they say, is the spice of life, you get. But then as students, we just have to follow and belong to a particular group, So talking about in-text citation in APA style, in-text citation is done in your essay paragraphs, like I've mentioned ab initio. So in APA, you cite the author, year, and page number. If your source is a book, PDF, or any document with page numbers, you have to cite the author, the year, and page number. If if your source or the article or it is a book with page numbers, but if there is no page number, it's just the author and the year. I'm going to show you an example. But let's look at other guides. So in APA, use the author's last name during in-text citation. So here's the difference. If you're mentioning the author for the first time in APA, maybe you are using APA. Let's assume you are using APA in your paper, and you are mentioning the author for the first time. Always use the last name of that author. Don't include their first name. Maybe according to Achebe, you get, this is APA style. And it happened to be that that's the first time, whether it's the first time or second time or the 100th time you're mentioning Achebe in your paper, or you're always going to use according to Achebe or Achebe stated, or maybe you just go ahead and write word or paraphrase Achebe at the end of it, or you still put Achebe, but don't bring in author's first name in in-text citation if you're using APA. So let's look at this example. So Perham reported that at intervals of a few miles are markets where many thousands, mostly women, collect to do petty trading, sell palm oil to the small middlemen. So you saw that I used Perham. Perham here is the last name of Margaret Perham. So Margaret Perham wrote a work on the colonial administration in Nigeria, capturing Aba women riots and, Aba women trade or women in Southeast Nigerian trade. So the work was written in 1937. And if you look at what I just did, I included the year in parentheses, included the year, then included the page number. So going back to the instruction, if you look up, you find out that it just followed the instruction, which is in APA, you cite the author, the year, and page number in your in-text citation. So let's assume that this was a source you wanted to, or you were using to integrate, something you were integrating into your paper to support your claim. So you were like, Perham reported that, you went ahead and quoted Perham. Then you also put in parentheses the year of publication of that work, of that book written by Margaret Perham. Then, because you lifted this quotation from a particular page, which is page 34 of that book. So you go ahead and put P34 to show the page number. I hope that's clear. But we'll still have more things on in-text citation in APA style. So it's incorrect to say Margaret Perham reported that, because like I said, like the rule goes, you don't include their first name in in-text citation in the body of your essay.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello? Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Is it because it's possibly some text, I don't know, maybe like a textbook or something, that you separate the Perham from the rest of the like the year and the page number? I'm considering a situation where we have Perham 1937.
Yeah. It's another way to introduce an author, in in-text citation. This is one way. There are many ways, but in any way you approach it, the rule is just that the rule I'm trying to establish here, I'm trying to report, I'm not establishing, according to APA 7th edition. The rule I'm trying to report is that you don't include the first name. So whether you write Perham 1937, but always know that Perham 1937 will be in bracket. Though I have a slide that explains this, I'm still getting there. So Perham 1937 will be in parentheses after Perham. Like if you write Perham, then the 1937 will be in parentheses. Then you go ahead and paraphrase or quote, make a direct quotation of a work. Then at the end, you still have to now put another parenthesis and put the page number. I think I have something like that. It should be the next slide, maybe. Okay, it's not the next slide. It's not the next. But I don't know if that question was answered, Professor Mary.
It's okay. It's all right. Thanks.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if this has been answered already, but please, how do you differentiate between an article, a book, an article in a periodical, and there's so many other, because sometimes when you try to do citation, especially on Microsoft Word, then it gives you all those options. So how do you know maybe you're online, your sources online? Most of them will have an article written. Most of them will write article. And most of them will tell you how to cite it, but not all of them. So how do you differentiate between all of them?
Okay, I would like to answer the question now, but I think I have something like that on the slide. Why don't we wait when we get there so that I would now address it at once?
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Fatai, do you have a question?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Sorry
Yeah.
to interject, sir. My own question is, sometime if we have author that are more than one, sir. For example, let's say we have maybe maybe the work I want to use is from Professor Kalu Osiri, and I said Osiri et al. Reported. Sorry, is it okay in that way, or I should merge maybe Osiri and Ama? Maybe I just use your name that way, sir.
Yeah.
So is it good that way, sir?
Yeah. So if we are two, you just go ahead
Yes, sir.
and say Osiri and Ama reported. You get. But if they are up to more than 4, that's the rule. If they are more than 4, you are going to use Osiri et al. Which
Yes,
means
sir.
Osiri,
Okay, thank you.
Osiri and others. Et al, I think, is an italic.
Oh, bless you, baby.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So you use Osiri et al. because there are up to 4, more than 4 authors, in that paper.
Yeah.
But
Okay, thank you, sir.
in your works cited page, you are going to cite everybody. Don't use et al.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
don't leave out anyone, because I won't be happy that I contributed to your work. Maybe I was the 7th contributor. Then you get to the work cited, you listed every other person, and you now called me a tar. I'll be like, where is my name? But you can do that in inter-citation, yeah. But if there are 2 authors in inter-citation, just call their 2 names, yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Yes, citation is a lot. I don't even know if I will get to the last slide, and I'm not teaching everything because it is a lot. It's not something we can cover in 1 hour. But I'm very happy that you're asking questions. I don't mind if I only entertain questions and we don't get to the last slide, because it's really a lot. And there are certain things I still have to check the book, because like I told you, it's a manual. It's not something that I have all figured out. It's a manual. You always have to check,
Yeah, it's good to refer to the manual.
Yeah, it's good to refer to manuals. I have my MLA here. I have another craft of racer. I have a lot of manuals here. So even whether you have,
Yes,
even professors still have all the manuals in their shelf.
exactly.
Yeah, because
Yes,
it evolves. You go from one edition to the
yes.
other. For example, now the Chicago manual just came out last month, the 18th December. But meanwhile, we've been using the 17th edition of Chicago manual. But immediately, the JJQ, which is James Joyce Quarterly, where I work as a proofreader, we got the 18th edition. And the new paper we are looking at, we are proofreading, we started applying that 18th edition. So that's the way it works. Yeah, Doris, go ahead.
Why did they change that?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My question is, I heard you saying that in the APA method or style of in-text citation, that once it is from the 4th, you use et al. I'm worried because before now, we've always learned that once it is above 2, you use et al. So if it is from the 4th, so what do you do to the 3rd when it is 3 authors?
No, when it is 3 authors, I think you should still use et al, if there are 3 authors. Yeah.
Yes, can I help out? Can I help out?
Okay, go ahead.
With APA, the 6th edition allowed us to list, if it is 3, allowed us to list all 3 in in-text citation. But the 7th edition has nullified that, okay? Before the 6th edition, if it is 3 and above, you use et al. You understand? But the 6th edition allowed you to bring in the 3rd person in in-text bosonym, like you said, in in-text citation. But the 7th edition has nullified that. So in the 7th edition, if it is 1, for instance, it won't do 2024. If it is 2, it won't do an Osiri. You understand? If it is 3 and above, the first person's surname is used. If I'm the first author, it won't do et al. You understand? And the year. But when you go to the reference section, you have to list all the names. What I haven't checked. Yes, but what I haven't checked, what are authors of papers that have so many? We also list them. Some papers carry like maybe 50 authors. That I have not checked. I may have to check that. But 3 and above for in-text citation for the 7th edition, you use et al.
Yeah, use et al. And you have to use the first author, the first author's last name, which is surname. Then you now use et al. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Mary. Like I said, this is a manual. You always refer back to it. Things change, right? Try as much as possible to be up to date with the manuals. So I like the way this session is going. It's interactive because at this point, every one of us have encountered this in our paper. And it's either we are using the old style manual or we are current. So I'm always happy for you to, call to my attention, help out and, talk about your own experience too. All right. So in the absence of no other question, like I said, I'm always open for you to pop in and ask questions. So let's just look at this incorrect in-text citation. Say Margaret Perham. So you don't bring in the first author, the first name of the author, like I said. Then this is the correct way. You can also put it this way. It was reported that in case you don't want to start with the author's name, you can say it was reported that at intervals, then you do your direct quotation, but you have to end it with with a citation where you lifted this quote. Then we have something like Perham 1937, page 34. And that way this could go is according to Perham 1937. I think this was the question you asked in ab initio, Professor Mary. What if we have the year in parenthetical form beside the author's name? So according to Perham 1937, many thousands, mostly women, collect to do petty trading, sell palm oil to the small middlemen. Then because it is a book, because where you lifted this quote it has page numbers. So you have to, attach your page number, which is page 34 here. So let's look at the in-text citation, MLA. So in MLA, you cite only the author and page number, if there is any page number. So the difference between MLA and APA is that in MLA, if you're using MLA citation, you don't bring in the year of publication of that book or the source you are kind of referencing. You don't bring in the year. It's just the author's name. And if the source doesn't have page numbers, you don't force it to have page numbers. You just leave it that way. So when you mention the author for the first time in MLA, if you are mentioning the author for the first time, use his or her first and last name. But if you're mentioning that same author subsequently in the paper, only use their last name. Yeah, that's the APA. Definitely, this is my own citation style. So that's a 7th edition. I think it was also the same thing in the 6th edition. So this particular rule, stands. It's been there in the MLA style. So do not use sources publication year anywhere in MLA in-text citation. The reason, according to MLA, someone asked question initially, why don't we use just one citation style, throughout our paper across disciplines? Like I said, people just want to do it differently. They think this is the best way it should go. So according to MLA, why they don't include the year of publication in the middle of their paper or in their paper? Because they think, what's the need? Because from the name of the author, I could actually go to the works cited page and find that name and also see the year of publication. So there is no need of writing the year of publication in the in-text citation. What is it going to serve? What is it going to help me? I can always see the year of the publication of the source of the book at the works cited page. So there is no need of repeating it in the body of the essay of the article. So you see, most of these things are always like, this is the way we think it should go. And that person will say, no, we think it should go this way. So that's why we have different school of thought. That's why we have scholars here and there. That's why we have variety of theories, psychoanalysis, formalism, eco-criticism. And I tell you, for example, using theory to buttress this point, I tell you, if this is a book, Things Fall Apart, somebody will approach Things Fall Apart through a post-colonial lens or approach. And that person will look at Things Fall Apart through a feminist theory, maybe looking at how did Achebe even, present, women in Things Fall Apart. Okay, Ekwefi, look at Okonkwo's wives, who were, you can approach that, and that person will look at Things Fall Apart with a post-colonial view or lens and be like, okay, let's look at how, the colonial contact or the cultural clash between the European culture and the African culture. Don't be surprised. Someone will take an eco-critical view of Things Fall Apart. You'll be like, what are you going to study about the eco-critical view? You look at nature and look at how nature was actually the relationship between man and the environment in Things Fall Apart. But this is just one book, but we have different theories looking at one book. So that's also the same way we have different citation styles, people propounding and saying, this is the way it should go. So this is MLA for you. They don't want you to use the year of publication in the middle of your essay. For example, Margaret Perham, which this was a work we cited, in the previous slide, in the APA style, and we included the year, which was 1937. But here, MLA, you are not expected to do that. Margaret Perham reported that at intervals of a few miles, a market where many thousands, mostly women, collect to do petty trading, sell palm oil to the small middlemen, and they just go ahead and put 34. And also look at the way they are, presenting their page number. They are not using P. They just go ahead and write 34. And that will just be it. No year of publication. Because they are mentioning this author for the first time, they are including her first name and her last name too, Margaret Perham. But if they should mention this author subsequently, they will only use Perham. Subsequently in the same essay, they will only use Perham. Then it is incorrect to say, according to Margaret Perham, at intervals, then after quoting, you also have to put Perham 34. It's incorrect because you've already mentioned the author. So there's no need of mentioning the author in parentheses to cite them. Just go ahead and put the page number. And don't put the year and page number. Just put the page number, like we have it in the first example, 34. So that's MLA. I don't know how many of us are in liberal studies then, but I think from what I've gathered, a lot of us, we use APA than MLA, maybe because of our discipline. Many disciplines use APA, but then in MLA. Okay, I have this here. So this is the correct way to put an MLA in text citation. According to Margaret Perham, at intervals, at the end, you have to put the year. I think I addressed this when I was talking about the previous example. So there is no need of repeating Perham or putting the year. Or you can do it this way. It was accounted that, because everything shouldn't be according to, I think Professor Mary, you raised this, there are different ways you can, introduce an author. So if you want to say according to, if you want to just go ahead and paraphrase that author, you just go ahead and quote. We are still coming to how you can reference paraphrases, summaries, and direct quotation. We are still coming to that. So you can actually not want to introduce the name of this author in the body of your work. you can go ahead and say and report the idea by saying, for example, it was accounted that at intervals of a few miles, for example, at the end of the quotation, you go ahead and put Perham 34. So to tell us where this idea is coming from, to tell us where this information is where you got this information. So you go ahead and say Perham 34. It's also another way to put it. Then in in-text citation, you support your argument with a source by either directly quoting the information from that source, which is what we've done all this while we've been looking at this slide. You could see these are direct quotations because you are using the quotation marks, quote and unquote. So you either do that by directly quoting the information from that source. You already know what I mean by source because we've talked about sources, in the previous sessions. Source are materials that you want to reference in your work or you want to use and support your claim. Source can be books, articles, objects, depending on, on what you are trying to, bring into your work as an evidence or to support your claim or a hypothesis. So you either do a direct quotation of information from that source, or you paraphrase it, or you summarize it. So we are going to look at these three ways by which you can, support your argument in in-text citation. So you summarize when the details of the source are not relevant to occupy much space in your paper. If the details of that source are, you don't think that it's really worth you, going in details or you bringing out things that happen in that paper into your work, you just thought that, you don't have enough space for that information to occupy there, just go ahead and summarize it. It might just be a story you heard about something and you just felt like referencing that story. You were like, according to the story that happened in 2013, according to the incident that happened in Social Market in 2013, where women revolted against the government, and that would just be it. But if we know to where, if you go to a report, if you go to a paper or an article where that account was written down, you find more things than just the one sentence you've used to summarize the whole thing. But because you've thought that, giving details will not really be relevant in your work, it's not like the information is not relevant, but the details are not relevant. You just go ahead and summarize. I have an example here. And if you look at this, this statement, I'm going to read it out. The first statement, which I put in purple font, they are just a summary of a book, a classical play written by Aristophanes. So I was like, just as Aristophanes' protagonist Lysistrata calls the women together for a revolt with a strategy to deny the men sexual intercourse unless they end the war and go back to their families, Aba women collegially sought for economic justice by revolting against the rumored vile taxation on women by the British colonial government. So if you look at this this example, you find out that my paper is talking about women. It's talking about a live account. It's talking about something that happened. You get? Then I felt like, alluding the women's or paralleling the women's effort, the women's dexterity, the women's plan, the women's wit to a certain type of situation that happened in a fictitious work someone has written. So there is no need of going in details to talk about the life of Lysistrata in a play written by Aristophanes, because what I'm discussing is a life event. What I'm discussing is something that actually happened. It's faction, not fiction. You get? And I don't think, I think here it is less important, or it is less useful, for me to go into details and start talking about Aristophanes' play, Lysistrata. So I just felt like using a sentence to summarize the epic moment of that play. And the only thing, if that play has like 500 pages, the main thing of that play is that women denied their husbands sex so that their husbands would stop fighting in the war. That was between Sparta and Greece, I think, something of that nature. So that was just it. So I will just use this one sentence and summarize it and just go ahead with my paper. So it is on this account that you use summary. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's another way you can also present in-text citation, which is paraphrasing. This method or technique is always advised, professors always advise you to paraphrase. I will also advise you to paraphrase because it shows you're a researcher to an extent. You don't quote every time, but I will tell you when to quote, despite the urge to paraphrase, when to go ahead and quote and do away with that urge to do a direct quotation. Despite that urge to put a direct quotation, there are situations that you need to quote word for word. We'll get to that. But you paraphrase when you can interpret the information in a source more clearly and suitably to your argument than it was stated in that source. Sometimes somebody might say something, you might be reading an article and you thought this thing is really important, will be important in your paper. But the way, the author had put it, if you do a direct quotation, it might not really, back up your claim, or it might not really support your claim. It might not really state it clearly. And you felt like, okay, let me paraphrase what this person has said so that it will fit into my argument, so that my readers will see, okay, this is the angle I'm coming from. But then be careful when paraphrasing. Don't say what the author had not said. Most times we do this a lot in liberal studies. We'll be like, it was inferred that, be careful of what authors what you think an author inferred. If you are writing a literary paper, for example, you are writing an article and you are using a novel, as your primary source, you can go ahead and say it can be inferred because literature is open for different interpretation. But be careful if you are carrying out an empirical research, or those of you in the science field, in the science discipline, be careful of saying it's inferred, because inferred is like this is what I thought this person meant. You have to be careful about that. But you are free if you are doing a literary research. For example, if you are writing a work on, I don't want to use European writers. Let me use African writers. Chimamanda Adichie's Purple Hibiscus. You can say it was inferred that Kambili did this, or Kambili wanted to do this. You can use that. But in paraphrasing, try not to say what the author has not said. Try not to paraphrase what the author has not said. Try not to interpret what the author has not said. But go ahead and paraphrase when you have to. It makes your work look so nice. It proves you as a writer, not just as a researcher. It proves you as a writer, as a word creator, as a sentence creator, as a thought processor. For example, Perham reported that at intervals, so this is direct quotation, right? So I will show the next example that paraphrases this. I think that's what I have. So Perham's report indicated that women, okay, let me read the first one so that when I now read the second one, you now see the way I paraphrased her. So Perham reported that at intervals of a few miles are markets where many thousands, mostly women, collect to do petty trading, sell palm oil to small middlemen. So look at the paraphrase of this sentence or this quotation. Perham's report indicated that women in their numbers leverage the palm oil trade to make ends meet. That is just a paraphrase of this. So most times you paraphrase and it's come out shorter. Most times you paraphrase, it goes beyond the exact the exact quotation. That means the direct quotation. But always paraphrase in a good way. Sometimes paraphrasing can be hard too. Sometimes we just exchange words and we start looking for synonyms of the next word. People paraphrase that way. Please be advised against, I advise you against that. Don't paraphrase. For example, you wanted to paraphrase the sentence. You're like, Perham's reported that, you now say at intervals. How else can we put at intervals? Okay, at some point, you now write at some point. Then you look at of a few miles. How else can we put of a few miles? So don't do this. This is not a good way to paraphrase. I think when I used to teach IELTS, I was like, I think the best way to paraphrase, Read that direct quotation, take your mind off it, ask yourself, what did that thing say? What's my understanding of that stuff? What's that one sentence that explains what I just read? So when you take your eyes off the direct quotation, you are able to paraphrase, but that is a trick. It's not something universal. It's just like a trick. Then let's talk about quotes. I think we are running out of time, but I'll try to rush some things a little bit. So let's talk about quote. If original words support your claim or the information is from an authority, go ahead and quote. Also, if you want to be exact on what was said so as to critique the scholar's argument or support your claim with what the scholar specifically said, go ahead and quote. I'll read the second sentence again. If you want to be exact on what was said so as to critique the author's argument, go ahead and quote. Because if you want to critique someone and you are paraphrasing them, the person might actually say, okay, this your paraphrase is not what I actually said. But if you are going to, critique or argue against something that an author or a scholar has said, go ahead and quote their exact statement so that when you are arguing them, you are kind of holding them to their words because that was actually what they said. You are not inferring. Don't argue after you've inferred what an author said. Argue when you've directly quoted what an author said. I'm going to show you an example. Pam reported that at intervals of a few months, okay, we've looked at this. This is like example of direct quotation. We've looked at it for more than 10 times now. Okay, look at this one. In his study, Eco-Criticism as a Reappraisal of Romanticism, Sandeep Mishra, if you look at, I introduced the author first and second name, so to know that this is MLA citation style. Sandeep Mishra emphasized that man's relationship with nature is the primary concern of both the romanticist and the eco-critics. Thus, he defined eco-criticism as a return to nature. Take note of that direct quotation, return to nature. That is a direct quotation. And because the writer of this work is going to argue what Mishra goes as an argument or as an assertion, he directly quoted what he said. He directly quoted that he refers eco-criticism as a return to nature. Then he now went ahead and said, however, Wordsworth and the Romantic poets writing do not address environmental issues or ignite a fire to protect the natural world from damage. So someone will be like, why are you arguing this person? Why are you maybe arguing against or trying to oppose what this person has said? Did he actually say this? You'll be like, yes, he said it. He said that eco-criticism is a return to nature because this is the critics, or sorry, the scholars' direct words, the scholars' exact words. So if you are going to argue against something, make sure you state you state what they exactly said by using a direct quotation. So this is also an avenue or cases where you use direct quotation. Someone should let me know if they understood this. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to myself.
We do.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
But I
sir.
could ask a question.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
could ask a question on direct quotation.
Yeah.
I see some people, especially in liberal arts, humanities, English, whatever, they want to do direct quotation. Maybe they're looking at Chinwe Achebe's book, Abi.
Yeah.
So you find them have several lines of quotations. They could have like 15 lines of quotations. Is that acceptable?
It's not acceptable, if it's not acceptable if you allow those lines to run in the middle of paragraph. So I think that should be the next slide I will propose. I love the fact you always ask a proactive question, Professor Mary, because it's always
Thank
something I've addressed in the next listing. Okay, let's look at it this way. So 2 ways for direct quotation. I think I've looked at this. Let's just keep this. Okay, yeah. Look at the next line. If the quote is more than 4 lines, indent them in the next line. So this addresses your question, Professor Mary. If it is more than 4 lines, do indentation I'm going to show you an example of an indentation because I think I have a slide where I did that. But if it is 4 lines or less, you can go ahead and quote it, like make it to run through your paragraph. Yeah, that is allowed. But like you said, 15 lines, that's a lot. Just do indent citation. And again, I understand. I won't ask them, why are you lifting up to 15 lines? Can't you just go ahead and paraphrase? Can't you just go ahead and summarize? It depends on, the point they are proving. We are not writing the essay for them. They know their claim. They know how useful it is to support their evidence, to support their claim. But then there is a rule. If it is more than 4 lines, from 5 lines above, do indentation. Oh, sorry the way I organized my slide. Maybe let me read the first thing. If your quote is 4 or fewer lines, I think I've mentioned it before, quote them in the paragraph, cover it with a quotation mark and cite properly, which we've been doing that all this one. But this is something new. If the quote is more than 4 lines, indent them in the next distance. I think, for example, look at this work. This work is how many lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 lines. And there's no need for me to have this inside a paragraph. So I was like, Elekwachi stated in his keynote speech at the Aba Women's War Memorial after 19 years, I had to indent this because I can't have this in the mid, like to run through a paragraph. It's a lot. So many people use it to just come up with, because they want to write 20 pages worth of an article. Everything will just be direct quotation. At the end of it, or where is your own thought? Where is your own primary thought?
Exactly.
You've not actually given us things. What you quoted are more than what you've written. Sources
Thank
you
you.
quoted are more than your source. Yeah, come in. Yeah, you wanted to say something, Professor Mary?
No. I'm appreciating what you said. Thank you.
Oh, okay, all right. So that happened a lot, and most times, publishers might look at your work, or journals might look at your work and be like, "What sense did you make?" Almost everything you are writing as if it is a literature review. Some professors even have some problem when you synthesize authors in literature review and you don't add your own thought. You don't, analyze all. Though I argue against that personally. For example, if you are writing a full work, let's say a thesis, and your literature review happen to be just interaction of authors, and you didn't actually put your own thought, it's okay because it's a part of a work. It's a part of, a full work. So you just have to go ahead and do that, because you still go ahead and do analysis. You still go ahead and write your introduction. These things are part of your work. But if you're trying to publish your literature review, hey, please bring in your own thoughts. Bring in your own thoughts. Don't just, quote others. So look at the way, this indentation happened. You get, look at the space, the margin you get. So I don't know how best to explain it, but I think the slide speaks for itself. Methinks. Shakespeare will say methinks. So I think we're out of time. I think I also want to continue next week on this because it's actually important. I don't think, yeah. Let me just have comments. Maybe we just have to stop here. There's no need of rushing everything. The primary goal is for you to understand it. So I love the fact that it was an interactive session. More people, hopped in, made comments. I think that should just be it. Because at the end of it all is for you to, back up what you already know or learn something new. Or, I think that should just be it. Let me have comment. Yeah, go ahead. Or questions, anyone? Yeah. Go ahead. Working. Sorry.
Thank you so much for the lecture. I'm actually a learner. I found it very, very interesting. And then secondly, I would like to I realized that while uploading on our class chat.
Amachi, excuse me, Amachi, can you mute yourself? Then you will be the second person to speak after. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you. So I realized that in our in the first academic writing, it wasn't uploaded on that module 2 or module 3. It was only in module 3 was only academic writing session 2 uploaded twice. So probably yeah, I think the first one wasn't uploaded, it was bare. So probably help us look into that for the PowerPoint so that we can be able to download the PowerPoint. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for calling to my attention on that. I will talk to Professor Suri on that and make sure. I sent him the slides sometime last week too. Yeah, I will get the message across. All right, Amarachi, go ahead.
I asked the question earlier, you said you will address it, so maybe that's going to be next week. But my question based on what you already talking about.
Okay.
So what informs the decision, right, to use APA, and then the next citation you want to do, you're using MLA, and then, like, why don't you just use one throughout? So what informs the decision to use anyone throughout your writing?
Yeah, I think it depends on what your professor wants. It also depends on what your discipline warrants. And it also depends on what a publisher or a journal wants. For example, if you are submitting to a journal, you always have to read kind of a little, we like to call it blurb about what they accept and what they don't accept. So it is also in that little note that you will see their citation style. They will say, make sure your works are cited in MLA 7th or 9th edition. So some of them will say PA in 7th edition. So they will always specify what your professor wants, what your discipline warrants, what the journal or publisher wants.
And if it's not specified, you just go ahead and do.
Yeah, they will always specify. What's your discipline? Let me know.
Project management.
I think most times you guys, for the most part, you use APA.
Yes, we do use APA all the time, actually. But, based on the discussion, I was just wondering, like, what would make someone want to use different applications in the same, and especially in school right now, this was really university. When you're writing, right now, we're doing a project, is it advisable to just go ahead and use anyone? Or I personally, I use Microsoft Word and I use APA.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why you need to ask your professor. That's why you need to ask the owner of that course or your project supervisor. Ask them the style you need to use. Yeah, in my master's at Duke University, I use APA. I hate, sorry to say I hated it, but because it's not my thing. I've been in liberal arts all this while, you get. So I used APA, and it was a kind of somehow for me, but now I'm back, doing my PhD in English. So I'm happy to come back to MLA, you get. So depends on what the authority wants.
Okay, thank you. So the other question will be next week.
All right, thank you.
You remember the question though? The question on like how do you differentiate between all those
Oh yeah, it will be next week because I didn't get to that slide. Yeah, I didn't get to that slide. Yeah, I have a slide on that, but we didn't get to it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Anybody can come in. Yeah, I see comments. I think I'm reading comments for the first time today. Thank you very much for the comments on the. Yeah, go ahead if you raise your hand. Science. Go ahead and pop in if you raise your hand or if you want to say something.
There's a comment I seem to like.
Okay.
It says, true. I remember a prof telling me my voice shouldn't be lost. It's actually very true. In your literature review, your voice should not be lost. So I have somebody put that comment here, and it's quite good.
I just saw it now. Yeah. I just saw it now. So sometimes we think because this person is somebody of authority. I wrote something. I said something in my third year in school, though I finally apologized to the professor. But then, it's something I should do, I told the professor that Chinua Achebe didn't, present Okonkwo very well, ended up not really doing what we really wanted. The professor was like, I should sit down. Why should I talk about Achebe that way? Because Achebe is idolized now in our department. If you're entering the department, your initiation book is Things Fall Apart, you get. So I was like, no, nah. You wanted to present an African author to reply Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness, maybe everything he wrote about about Africa. So you started well by showing us a character who's at the age of 18, brought honor to his village by throwing Amalins at the cat. You showed us, the dexterity and valor of an African man, even at the age of 18, could do a lot for his community. But at the end of it, you just use your pen and just killed the character like as if he's nothing. He didn't even die fighting. He didn't even die, like he didn't die like a hero. He just went and committed suicide and hanged himself. And it's a taboo to kill oneself. That was why Obi Erika at the end of Things Fall Apart told the white man, that's no mafia song will touch that corpse because it's a taboo. They should be the one to bring him down and go and bury him, maybe in the evil forest and all this. So and the way Achebe ended that hope that we saw from the beginning, he has his reasons, but then literature is open for interpretation. And this was what I was actually, the voice I was bringing in the classroom, to bring something, to be non-conform, to be non-conform in the class. But then the professor shut me off. So it's crazy. So don't lose your voice, bring your voice, argue. That's what we are doing in research, especially we in humanities. Just bring in something, say something. Yeah, go ahead. Any other comments?
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, so sorry, this is my first time of attending the class, and I find the class very interesting and intriguing. So, sir, the previous classes, I don't know if I can get the recorded classes.
Yeah, I always send out the recordings to Professor Siri the next day because I get the record the next day. I don't get it immediately after my meeting. I get it the next day, and the next day I always forward it to him and also to him. So you can check back with him. Maybe just send him an email. He has all the
right, sir.
recordings, all the slides, and
So
I'll also be
the
sending
previous
this
class
slide.
has been uploaded anyway.
Sorry, go ahead, AB Wonder.
The previous classes has been uploaded in the platform, so he can always go there to see them.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you so much, sir.
Welcome. Any other comment?